Hi, good evening. My name is Dr. Larry Force, and I am really glad to be able to welcome you back to another one of our proactive caring home and school exchange videocasts. We do these every 2 weeks, and as we're doing this, what I'm looking for is I'm just looking for something that I want to be able to read to you. We're here tonight based upon the funding and support of New York State DDPC. New York State DDPC, Developmental Disability Planning Council, have been tremendous partners. They funded us, and when I say us, our Center on Aging and Disability Policy at Mount St. Mary College, that my friend and colleague, Dr. Jeffrey Kahana, and I direct. They funded us for 3 years, and the intent was to be able to, work with family caregivers and to be able to train family caregivers for the use of mindfulness-based stress reduction. COVID came in, we had to go virtual, and as a result of that, the benefit was that we were able to, expand our reach. At one point when we started, we had a mailing list shy of 400. We have a mailing list now coming in the 4,000 range. And the reason is because of the fact that we've made connections all the way through. It's been a wonderful experience. I know that DDPC is happy with the outcome because they extended our funding for another year, which is this year here. When COVID came in, I reached out to 2 team members, Lisa Nathan, who is a parent advocate and a meditator, and Peggy Pisano, who is an advocate and a school psychologist. And I asked them if they would be willing to do this. Let's put together a Zoom call, we'll record it and send it out to our mailing list. It's been wonderful. Elaine Sprode is here. Elaine is the director. We brought her on as the director of our program, and she has been really outstanding in the work. And the only thing I ask is if people are on, if you could mute yourself, that would be great. So this way we can be able to decrease the background noise. Thank you, Sonia. So here we are. Tonight, we're very pleased because of the fact that we have a special guest, and that is Kathleen O'Keefe. And as you can see, I'm working with my iPad here, and I'm trying to let additional people in, which I'll be able to do in a second. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce Kathleen. Kathleen and I have known each other for a number of years. We worked together. Kathleen was the director of career counseling at Mount St. Mary College, where I'm a professor. She and her husband, Mike, have now moved to the Boston area. Kathleen was a real standout and a real star and a wonderful colleague and friend to work with. Not only did the faculty enjoy working with her, but also the students. Kathleen has joined us tonight. She's a job readiness instructor in the Adult Center for Education at Northern Essex Community College in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and the assistant registrar at LaSalle University in Newton, Massachusetts. Kathleen will speak on the power of soft skills, tools, and resources. And when I say speak, it'll be an exchange. It'll be an exchange between Kathleen and Peggy and Lisa, and then among all of us, it'll be an exchange. And Ben, I want to thank you for your presence because of the fact that you've done a wonderful job in promoting our program. And as a result of that, you can see the number of people that have joined us tonight, which is just very, very, very good. Kathleen holds a bachelor's degree from Siena College and a master's degree in counting from Manhattan College. She finds meaning and purpose in see with the skills she's helped them develop and their newfound confidence. Excuse me. If everybody could mute themselves, that would be great. All right, let me just help here. There we go. Let me see who else. Perfect. So she really does find meaning and purpose seeing her students succeed with the skills that she's helped them develop and their newfound confidence. She was named to the Irish Education 100 as a top educator in America by the Irish Voice newspaper in 2016. Prior to her current position, Kathleen was a director of the Mount St. Mary College Career Center, where she worked for over 15 years and was instrumental in transforming the cooperative and internship programs at office into a professional career center. And that, I can say quite clearly, is absolutely right on target. She did an incredible job with that. So with that, what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce Kathleen O'Keefe. And I'm going to be here, but I'm going to go off screen for a minute. And Kathleen, can I introduce you and thank you on behalf of all of us for joining us tonight? Can you hear us?
We can hear you.
All right, we can hear you now. What's that?
Everybody else is muted.
Yeah, that's good. That's the way we want it right now.
Perfect.
We can still hear you. We just can't hear the background noise being generated from their home.
Absolutely. So, I mean, as Larry said, most of my experience has been working with college students and helping them through the transition, you know, starting at college, but also getting ready for the transition of what comes next. And I know that's a lot of the kinds of things that you've been talking about, are these transitions that everybody is constantly going through. And one of the things that Larry and I have often talked about is how those soft skills are so important in making a transition to be successful. And for some people, these things are just second nature. They come very easily. But for other people, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of really thoughtful behavior to develop these skills. In my work now at Northern Essex Community College with adult students, these are people who are English language learners, not real confident in their ability to express their thoughts and feelings and ideas in English. And so they're a little hesitant. And even with them, sometimes these skills can be really difficult because culturally things can be very different. So what we do is we just practice. And I think the way to be successful is often just practicing. My students will practice in the mirror. So we get ready for job interviews and they're looking in the mirror and practicing things like smiling, things like maintaining eye contact, practicing those elevator pitches, being able to articulate in a concise way and in a way that makes sense, just what they're looking for and what their goals might be, able to introduce themselves. So I think a lot of these things we're just taking for granted, that smile, that handshake, that eye contact, and these are things that just make it a lot easier as we progress. So actually today in my class, what we talked about a lot were emotional intelligence, and really sitting back and trying to identify what are the things that make it comfortable for you when you're having a conversation with someone. What makes you want to say more? What makes you feel like you want to engage? And thinking back to those people where you really feel comfortable and are able to have those conversations and identifying what are those key characteristics. And it all came back to those soft skills, that ability to pay attention, to be welcoming, to listen. And these are things that I think, a lot of people do struggle with, but again, things that can be taught and things that we develop with further practice. So I don't know if you have anything else that you wanted to add, Peg, or...
Yeah, what I'd like to talk about and be able to get the conversation going are these skills teachable? And I know that the answer is going to be, from the perspective of Lisa, and Lisa, maybe you could talk a little bit about examples from the lived experience, and also from Peggy from the behavioral perspective. Are these skills teachable? And I just want to add one thing. It's our intention, now that we're coming to the end of this leg of the grant, that in 2022, our intention is to be able to develop a platform and an approach to be able to teach people with intellectual disabilities how to use mindfulness-based stress reduction. So the fact is that, we've been doing it for caregivers. Now this time around, we're doing, the idea of, transitions, but we want to be able to be present with teachable skills about how to teach people with intellectual disability, persons with intellectual disability, how to use this mindfulness-based stress reduction. And Peg and I talked about this, and Lisa, Peggy and I, and Elaine, and all of us. And one of the things that we know is that through years ago, from a behavioral perspective, it was called task analysis. You go into someone's life, they might be living in a group home, and the goal is to be able to teach them how to clean their rooms or keep their rooms clean. And then that would be the overarching goal. And then you would break it down into measurable objectives. So I think that this could be done, but Peg, maybe you can pick up, from that about, the role of soft skills in the settings that you've worked in, and then Lisa can talk also about the role of soft and the importance in the home environment.
Well, first, let me say that I'm listed down there as Larry Force, so I'm Peggy Pisano. But I agree with Kathleen in that those skills, which oftentimes come easily to some people, but not so easily to others, sometimes are overlooked in the training, especially in schools, for students with disabilities. So what we've done in the past in the school that I worked in is do that actual training. How, role play, really, and we've talked often about role playing, but role play over and over and over again. What do? You walk into the room, you smile at the person. If you can introduce yourself verbally, then you introduce yourself verbally. If you can't, then you might have something written that somebody helped that that you wrote. Just those kinds of things that introduce you to someone else. And depending upon where the person is located, where they're going, in other words, those skills are really important. So, if you're going to a workshop kind of situation, then you still need those skills. You need to be able to say, my name is, and if you can't say my name, maybe you wear a name tag, and you point at the name tag. So there's different levels of training that could and should happen for people with disabilities, depending on how difficult, the situation might be. But I think that, in terms of task analysis, we could analyze just all of those skills that are required to get in the door for any kind of work, whether it's a workshop, whether it's going to college, whether it's through Access VR or Vested, those kinds of things. And what are those skills that are necessary that people have to use to communicate what they want to happen. And I think I really liked Kathleen's idea of practicing in the mirror, because I think that you can do that. You can practice eye contact, and if the person is not making eye contact, help them, guide them to look forward. And as a parent or a teacher or whomever, help with guidance in terms of prompting. And we talked about prompting before in the past as well. So, prompt them to look up, prompt them to look at someone in the eye, prompt them to shake someone's hand. And then I think over and over and over again, practicing, because I don't think any of us are good at anything unless we practice it, unless it, is it sort of an innate thing. So I like that practicing in the mirror. I think, Kathleen, you talked a little bit, maybe you could explain a little bit about the elevator thing that you talked to us about, that's a practice with another person. So maybe you could explain that a little bit too. I think she's mute. I think you might be on mute, Kathleen.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things we used to do as well is, using humor, and we would work with the improv group at the Mount, and using a lot of humor, illustrate those things that you shouldn't do. And it was always around a job interview, because remember, my background is career development. But, the person would we'd have the audience sitting around the stage, and a person would walk in for an interview and just barrel through the office and, almost knock the person down that's doing the interviewing and just plop into the seat. So funny, but really illustrating, like, see how that looks? Like, you can't do that. And we would have the students kind of analyze, like, all the little mishaps along the way. But really just kind of bringing to mind that sometimes we do that. You're so nervous that maybe you just barrel into a room without realizing, gee, I need to stop, shake somebody's hand, say hello, then I go and sit down, following cues. But so I didn't really think of that before until you were just speaking, but the elevator pitch is really, it's modeled after, you end up in an elevator with somebody that you've wanted to meet, whether that person is hiring for a job or you just have a very short period of time to make an impression upon this person, and it's somebody that you've really wanted to meet. And an elevator takes what? 30 to 60 seconds to get you to wherever you're going, depending on, how big the building is. So in a very concise period of time, you need to be able to introduce yourself and get across a couple of key points. So we would call that the elevator pitch. So if, in my work, if a student was going to, let's say, a job fair and wanted to meet several different employers, or maybe there was a guest on campus, this is what they would use. They would use that elevator pitch. But it's good that we all have one, because, and you probably all do, because you're always meeting people. And when you meet somebody new, it's that little snapshot you give of yourself. So that's what an elevator pitch is. And that would be good for, whoever it is that you're working with that might have some disabilities. That's a good thing for them to practice as well, to be able to introduce themselves. And even if it's that, I'm in, 11th grade at, Newburgh Free Academy, and just leave it at that. It doesn't have to be anything big, long, and fancy, but it's the idea that you have a little snapshot of who you are that you can give at a moment's notice, that you have it ready to go at all times.
So I just want to ask you something, and then I'm going to ask Lisa to present from the lived experience landscape. You were the director of career counseling, okay? And in your roles now, you're still engaged with college students. Mm-hmm. When students came to you, what would you encourage them to do and emphasize in that whole idea of the soft skills? I mean, is it, one of the things I read recently is that in this COVID world, the one thing that is absent when we talk about the job creation or, job offers is the handshake, because things are being done virtually. But what would be the things that here you have a forum right now of parents and many parents of children with special needs. And they're concerned about this idea of transition. How are their children going to be able to navigate through the system? How are they going to be able to stand out as they move on to the next level, whether it be some type of program or whether it be some type of community college or job opportunity? What would you say as you look back on your career that you found yourself emphasizing over and over again about the important key soft skills?
Oh, the one thing I would always tell, and I still tell students this, is control what you can control, because a lot of impressions are made in a split second. So if you're meeting somebody for the first time, whether it's that job interview, whether it's an interview for college, whether it's, walking into a classroom for the first time with new teachers, there's certain things you can control. People are going to, people are going to get a first impression from you, and you can control a lot of that. So that's the way you walk in. So that's what I would tell students. You walk in with a smile. You're right. In today's day and age, you might not want to put your hand out to shake. You might want to kind of take a cue from the person you're coming up to, because I might be really comfortable shaking a hand, but somebody else might not want, might not feel that way. So just kind of, as a young person, I would kind of take the lead from the older person in that instance. But walking into a room with a smile, making eye contact, and having a nice greeting, and being able to introduce yourself. Those are all things you can control. Now, and I know it is not easy. And I would say, I'm basically pretty much an extrovert. I had no problem going, knocking on doors, making cold calls, going to meeting lots of different employers at any given time. advocating for students and trying to help, create opportunities for them. But when it comes down to doing stuff like that for myself, I shy away from it. I'm not really interested in doing that. So I know it can be really hard when you have to advocate for yourself. But really, that's what we're trying to teach. That's really what all this is about, right? We have those soft skills, we can advocate for ourselves, and we're just going to be more successful. And that's true of anybody, no matter what their situation. So control what you can control, be able to, eye contact, a smile, some sort of greeting, and being able to introduce yourself. I think those are really key things. And you do that right, you've started off on a great foot. You've made that positive impression. And then, from there, just see what happens.
Beautiful. Lisa, from your perspective as the parent advocate, and also, from the meditator, I mean, because this can be very anxiety provoking, both for parent and for child.
Absolutely. And there's a few things. I made a few notes, and I mean, the phrase that stood out to me the most, Kathleen, is control what you can control, because that's something as a meditator that we learned from the very beginning. You can only control what you cannot control anybody else. You cannot change anybody else. The only person you have any control over is yourself.
Oh, sorry, Lisa.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm muting you.
Oh, you did that. Oh, by the way, and my name is not iPad 2 either. It's Lisa Nathan. So sorry. So yes. And the other thing is, I love the idea about practice again. You practice, but a couple of ideas I also put in there is, it struck me when you were talking about your students who, English is not their first language. When you don't feel confident, or when you doubt yourself, you tend to run loops in your head, negative thought loops. Oh, they think there's something wrong with me. It could be right from the beginning. Walking through the door, they're thinking that there's something wrong with me. And the person's already thinking, oh, I'm not good enough. So I think, the meditation is very beneficial in the way that we can learn what those thought loops are. So you cannot do that. You could understand what you're doing in your head. So when you walk through that door, you're walking through it positive. So it's positive energy rather than having all those negative thoughts in your head. I think emitting that positive energy is also a really good thing. And of course, how can I talk about meditation without bringing this up, is breathing. Being nervous. It's those breaths, because we know, and I'll say this ad infinitum ad nauseum, that through breath, it's one of the only ways that we can control our nervous system, our central nervous system. And if you're feeling really uptight and nervous, you're in fight or flight because you're stressed, you learn how to take some nice deep breaths, make your exhale longer than your inhale, and you can learn how to calm yourself down. And that could be part of the process. So because when you're stressed, and you're sitting across from somebody and they're speaking to you and you're having thought loops in your head and you're worried about what you're going to say, you can't focus well and you're not going to have a genuine conversation. So by learning how to breathe and get yourself in the moment of being in the here and now, I'm here and I'm completely focused on this other person, and I could be more genuine and come across as more genuine and hear what they're saying. It's like when we get really nervous, we can not even hear what the other person is saying. And, if you're home and let's say you're practicing with somebody and helping them, just to be patient. We very often will, again, this is something we learned from meditation, how to respond rather than react, and to really help, your loved one, work with them. So if they're practicing how to be positive and kind to support them, and not jump down their throat. I mean, it's not that you would, if you're perhaps helping, but it just, having that basis of kindness and compassion, and being able to know that you're saying something really positive for them can be very helpful. And yeah, it's really difficult to advocate for yourself. So that could be the hardest, because who's our worst critics? Like, we all know, everybody could raise their hands and say, I know myself. So again, it's those thought loops that with meditation can give us a little bit of distance and a little bit of objectivity.
One of the things that we talk about I teach a course in the theories of social casework, case management. And one of the things that we talk about is you really can't help somebody manage their life unless you manage your own. And the fact is that, we're not looking for, we're not looking for sprinters. We're looking for long distance runners in this field. We're looking for people who will stay with us for a long period of time, and how important it is to be able to take care of yourself as you're taking care of somebody else. So yes, we are talking tonight about the power of soft skills, but it's not just the soft skills with the individual with intellectual disability. It's the soft skill of the parent, of the teacher, of the educator. It's the idea that, I can have the best soft skills, but if they're not being reacted to properly, then I may stop using them. So this idea of, the practice is very important. Ling Li, I see that you have your hand up. Elaine has told me that. If you could unmute yourself and ask your question, that would be great. Are you there?
I noticed that I can't hear the voice of one of the professors. Let me see. Sometimes I can't hear the voice of Professor Kathleen, and I don't know if there are something wrong with her earphone. Oh, that is what I want to say.
You're doing fine. So if you had to say this again, what would be the main point that you'd like us to address?
I hope you could, to make sure that everyone can speak and we can hear everyone's voice, because I can't hear the voice from Professor Kathleen O'Keefe.
All right. So from what I'm saying is that you're hoping that this exchange can be continued on, and that people would be able to exchange their stories, and that we could learn from each other.
I think what she's saying is that she literally can't hear Kathleen sometimes.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I think it might help if maybe you mute when listening, because the ambience, Dr. Force, in your mic it can drown out some of the other speakers sometimes, depending on their mic levels.
And here's the problem, okay? And I hear you clearly, okay? And you have no idea how I'm using breathing techniques right now, because my iPad has been frozen since the time we said hello. And I've been trying to mute and do all the other stuff, and it's not working for me. So I will lower my volume and let's see if that works. All right, but thank you. Let's see if that works. Give me a chance. Better? Yes? All right, well, I
It's hard
can't
to
hear
tell.
you either, so continue
I was
on.
muted. Okay, I'll be.
Okay. Well, obviously, we're getting beyond the technical obstacles that are with us tonight. But Kathleen, I think you heard what they said, that some of the things that you've been saying have not been amplified. So if there's a way that you could maybe summarize, maybe in a louder voice, maybe that might work with the technical difficulties we're dealing with. But you don't have to repeat everything you've said, but maybe a couple of takeaway messages.
Yeah, I mean, I think teaching, everybody, teaching whoever needs to learn, which is probably all of us to some level, how to really harness those soft skills that we're able to leave those, make those really good impressions, and ultimately feel more comfortable with ourselves and with the way we're with the way we're, entering a room and meeting people. So really encouraging people to practice, whether it's in a mirror, whether it's at home, whether it's role playing, but practicing those skills. So practicing smiling in the mirror, practicing, a quick little introduction, practicing eye contact, practice entering a room, whether if it's your child, they practice coming into your room and just giving you a quick little introduction and, a little elevator pitch about themselves. I think it's really critical that these soft skills are developed so that it's easier for everybody to go through these transitions, to build relationships, to have a support system, because without the soft skills, it's really hard to develop meaningful relationships. These soft skills, I think soft skills make you be somebody that people want to be around and to spend time with, and make you more relatable. So these are things that are just very welcoming, and that's kind of.
All right, and yeah, and I thank you for that. And Lingley, the one thing that I think we'll be able to do is, because it's coming through loud and clear on the iPad, and hopefully it's recording, and then we can send you the recording, so you'll be able to hear it a little bit louder. So we apologize for that. Before I go back to Peggy and Lisa, Ben, would you have any comments?
Yeah, so my question is, we know that for a child on the spectrum begins their career, we need lots of soft skills. So, for example, if a parent try to prepare this young child into their parent, what kind of the soft skill, maybe list a basic something that then we can learning, that we can practice home, we can teach home, teach school. So what kind of the soft skill will be very, very essential for the job readiness, So that's my question. Maybe you have any reference, anything, a list or something we can learn about this one?
Yeah, and I think, Peggy, if you and Lisa could take the lead on answering that. Peggy, you from the high school perspective of being an advocate for children and preparing them, and then Lisa from the lived experience and also as a meditator. So Peg?
Sure. The first thing I'd like to say is I think something that's important for anybody that's transitioning to wherever they're going is to look at your attire. And so for students who are moving to the next avenue of their life, what should you dress like? How should you dress when you're going to meet somebody? If it's summer, you have to dress in a summer sort of outfit, but not, you don't go in your cutoff shorts and your t-shirt. You kind of have to wear something that's presentable. And those are the kind of things I think that parents and staff members can help with. This is where you're going to look for a job or to go to further your education or whatever so what do you do? What do you wear? And so I would start there. And then also, okay, let's practice you walking through the room. Just as Kathleen said, some people might just run through the room and plop down in the chair. You can't do that when you're trying to introduce yourself to someone. So let's walk through the room slowly. That would be sort of the next step. When you get into the room, look at the person. And again, this, the levels are going to be different depending on who we're talking about. But let's look at the person that you're speaking with. And then, ask the person, can I sit down? So that would maybe be the next step. Perhaps shake hands. And again, in today's world, maybe people don't like to shake hands. But if you don't shake hands, say, my name is, and that would be the next step, so that you would introduce yourself to the person who is going to interview you for whatever that, job, next step, what have you. And then know when to speak and know when not to speak, because listening is as important as speaking. So, that's the kind of thing that you can practice with your child. While I'm speaking, you don't speak. While you're speaking, I don't speak. And, maybe they need some touch control with that. Like, you can touch them on the shoulder and teach them how to quiet themselves down while the other person is speaking. So that might be another step in the sort of chain of events that you might want to teach. How do you exit? What do you say? Thank you for talking to me. Thank you for interviewing me. So that might be the next step. And then maybe leaving the room. That's another step. You don't want the person to just run from the room. You want the person to walk out of the room. So I think that if we can do this, kind of write down all of those things, and then as parents and teachers and professionals, work with our people, our children, whomever, to work on each step. And I think, as Lisa has always told us, that's sometimes things move at a glacier pace. So maybe walking in and out of the room is going to take many, many lessons. But, it's something, again, where the practice takes effect. So you walk in and out of the room 100 times, 20 times, 50 times, however long it takes for you to work with your child and or your student, if you're the professional in the school, to let them understand that this is how we enter a room. We don't run in, we don't, plop down in the chair. So, we can put that together in a list of things. And then as parents, I think those are good practice techniques for you guys to work with your children on, and also for school districts to work on, because we're talking about transitioning out of schools. And so, the schools know the people that they work with, they know how they operate, but the next transition doesn't know your people just yet. So how do those people demonstrate who they are in the most positive way? So I think, some kind of task analysis we certainly could present and put that in a script.
And Lisa, from your experience, I muted you. I'm not sure if you got the text, but from your experience.
Yes, I did. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not home.
Okay.
I'm out, so I'm not in my usual space. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But from your experience, talk about, maybe some actual experiences that you've been through, and strategies that you've used to enhance the behavior or to somehow modify it.
As far as when you say my experiences,
well,
like
dealing with your son and soft skills, and how you go about emphasizing it, or if you see it going in a direction you don't like it going, how do you go about redirecting it?
Okay, let me think for a second, because that's a term I've used for my son, is he can move at a glacial pace. He for my son, and it depends, humor works really, really well. And I remember telling some people, like some doctors, I said, you want to get through to him, use humor. And they look at me like I got 6 heads, but I don't care. He'll react positively. So I think if you're in a situation and you want to help your child, I mean, I can only do it from the perspective of my son and what his needs are, as far as we're talking about, kids here right now, is to know their strengths and help to use their strengths in an environment. If they're really friendly and positive, use that. If it's whatever their skills are, to help them develop those. And Peggy, you said something which was listen, because you said exactly what I was thinking. Very often we hear, but we don't listen. And I think developing mindful listening is very, very helpful for anybody. And to really hear what the other person's saying, is really important. So teaching that, and, use the strategy that you think will be best in that particular situation, with the interview you're going to have, if it is indeed a job interview. Yeah, I'm not being very specific. I'm rambling a little bit, but if you want me to hone in on anything more specific, let me know.
No, but I think, well, maybe we could talk about an example. When we talk about transitions, we talk about jobs. Let's talk about going to a medical appointment. The importance of medical school, of soft skills as you're going to go into a medical appointment, or a dentist. do you spend time preparing your son for those experiences about the shoulds and shouldn'ts and things like that?
Yes, as much as I can, to explain to him. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. He can be very scared about certain things. I will try to prep him. I mean, before dentists, we've read books, we've looked at videos, to go to the doctor, but I've also learned that I can only push so far. If he's resistant to something, my son, for instance, and I don't know if we're going, off topic, but just, the doctor wants him to lie down on the table to do like a belly exam. And Gabriel does not like to lie down. And in the beginning, I'd be like, come on, Gabriel, you got to lie down for the doctor. You got to lie down for the doctor. But you know what I said? You know what? If he doesn't want to lie down for the doctor, then he doesn't want to lie down for the doctor, and let the doctor deal with it. I don't have to deal with it anymore. That's the professional's job. They'll work it out together. So to back off, and to say, no, I need to be respectful of my son's level of comfort in the situation, and to know, okay, I'm not going to force him as a parent. I'm not going to force him. If he's not comfortable, we're just going to let it be.
But that is such a powerful statement about being sensitive to the level of comfort for your child. The other thing that, even though you've just tossed it out there, you have no idea how important it is as a teaching tool, that prior to going to the dentist or prior to going to you're looking at videos, you're looking at pictures, you're trying to, recreate or create a very, important situation. One of the things I was going to bring up is the use of technology now. I mean, YouTube is a tremendous teaching tool. So that if your child is going to the dentist, maybe you're out there on YouTube looking at a couple of videos that can talk about what a dental appointment actually looks like. And then you can be there interpreting it and breaking it down and transmitting it to your child. But that's a very powerful, when we talk about task analysis and behavioral learning, that's what we're really talking about, Lisa. And you've integrated it so naturally into your style. And it's interesting, your take, because that takes a lot as a parent. Look, I heard this statement one time and I live by it. And the statement is, as a parent, you're as happy as your unhappiest child. And I love that statement. And the fact is, if you see your kid in pain or discomfort or not having a good time, you feel it yourself. There's no doubt about it. You feel it yourself. And then the question is how best to deal with it. Obviously, how I interact with our kids today is different than how I interacted with them when they were younger. But there are still times that I'm doing things that I know that I got to step back on. Kathleen, what do you think?
Yeah, I was been thinking about a bunch of things, but even when you're, I had thought of YouTube before when, might have been when Peg was speaking. But YouTube, I've used YouTube videos to show my class because my adults I'm teaching all on Zoom. So I've used YouTube videos just to illustrate, it might be really good interview behavior, or it might just be kind of a disaster. So using those videos to show them and to help them to identify, what's appropriate, what's not, because they're coming from different backgrounds, and many of them will tell me, oh, you don't ask questions at the end of an interview. That would be disrespectful. I'm like, well, no, in the United States, we ask questions, and this is, it's expected that you're going to ask questions. So there's really, very cultural differences. So for them to actually see, this is how a good interview goes, a quick little YouTube video, and to show something else, and they can kind of really talk about the different pieces and, see what we do that's different. So I think it would be really helpful for, watching with children and being able to identify, good and appropriate behavior versus, behavior that really isn't going to do you any favors. And there was something else.
Well, while you're thinking of it, Corinne, Elaine has indicated you have your hand up, so please. And let me introduce everybody to Corinne. Corinne McPeters is a wonderful addition to the Proactive Caring team. She is an MSW intern at Columbia University, and she comes to us through Sharon Murray Cohen, who is the executive director of Jewish Family Services in Ulster County. This semester and next semester, Sharon is supervising Corinne as she's furthering her studies. So we're so glad you're here. So please.
Thank you so much, and I'm happy to be here. Kathleen, I have some questions about. So what I've been thinking about throughout this presentation is how soft skills are inherently about subtlety, like about so many of these things can be in the eye of the beholder, and how for many people, I'm thinking specifically for neurodivergent people with ADHD or on the autism spectrum, how picking up on these things it's like asking like someone without wings to fly or something like, and so you were talking about YouTube. There's so many different things. So you were talking about YouTube. The first thing that popped in my head is this great channel called Charisma on Command. It's not meant for people who are developmentally disabled, but it uses super specific and literal language to break down social interactions, usually from pop culture. There's so many videos, so you might have to sift through some silly ones, but it's a great channel. And something else that came up, my little brother is he's an adult, he's a young adult in college, and he's on the autism spectrum, and something that has come up a lot for him has been finding the specific language he needs to advocate for himself. Like when he's excited about something, he'll kind of interrupt someone, and he tries not to, but when it happens, he's learned to say kind of like, I when I get excited, sometimes I interrupt, sorry about that, and he'll kind of like catch it. And a tool that helped us identify some of these things have been some online personality quizzes that just kind of give you feedback about your personality. It's a nice jumping off point to help like hone specific feedback and specific directions for each person. And so those were a lot of statements, not many questions, but that is to say, what do you think about that, and how has that come up in your work?
Well, I mean, that's very useful information. Could you give again the YouTube channel that you talked about initially?
Charisma on Command.
Charisma on Command. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. And how is your brother doing now as he's learning these new techniques, navigating a system? Because what happens is, this is the other thing, and we haven't talked about this, but Corinne brings up an interesting point. Many of you sitting here as parents of children in K through 12 have IEPs. And as a result of having an IEP, you're entitled to certain services that you advocate for, that you hold on to. And then you get to a certain age or beyond high school, and you come into a college arena, and the college arena is not, mandated to respond to an IEP. And the question is then, look, I teach at a small university, a small college. I have a student that tells me that they're going to transfer to a large university, or for whatever reason, or they come from a large university to us. And one of the things I tell them is it's important to sit up front. Don't get lost in a theater, okay? Because some of these large universities have classes of 300 when we don't have that, which is really a gift. So if you're going to do those types of things, sit up front, be known, be recognized, that type of thing. And the other thing is that on the college level, if a student does raise their hand and say that they need some type of accommodations, then they are directed to go to the Accessibility Disability Office. And then what happens confidentially, the teacher will I'll get a letter from them or from the student that says that as a result of something that they've been able to demonstrate, that they're entitled to longer testing hours, or have a tutor next to them, or things like that. I mean, so it's not that the college or the university level is heartless, but it's a different arena, and an IEP is not necessarily responded to. So those are very important points, Corinne, that you bring up. Anyone else before we summarize tonight? And Elaine, if you can help me, if you see hands up, or Ben, if you'd like to say anything, or Clifford's here, please.
What I would say is, maybe it's a little bit off on a different track, but just the importance of repetition. That I remember very well when I was maybe going out of my comfort zone back in elementary school and was giving a speech at graduation from 6th grade. And because I hadn't done public speaking before, the teacher had us actually go to the space where the ceremony would take place and practice and practice and practice over and over again, so that it became more second nature and more natural. So I think the same is true, especially in transition. A lot of times things are new and not familiar. And it may be helpful to simply give the young person an opportunity to become familiar with the setting if it's possible, and to practice the interactions that might be expected.
Those are valid points. So thank you. Anyone else? Lisa?
Yeah, I was going to point to what Elaine said, because with practice, obviously with repetition, you get better and better. And I think it's important to be kind to ourselves in the beginning. You know, we may look like a train wreck, but as we go on, as we practice, we'll get better and better. So having that patience and kindness for yourself. And just the other tech thing is perhaps even to video yourself. Because I know, like in some speeches I've done, like I've videotaped myself, and it helps to see. It also helps to see like what your face looks like, make sure you have more, emotion, or how you sound if you're talking slow enough, because we tend to speak very quickly when we're presenting. So that might be, a useful tool if it's applicable and helpful.
Thank you. And this might be a good segue, Lisa, because one of the things that is your trademark is the fact that in every video cast that we do, you give examples of how to actually use the mindfulness-based stress reduction technique. So at this point, if you could do that, I think this would be perfect.
You got it. And of course, since I talked about breathing, we'll do a little bit of let's do a little bit of the breathing so we can learn that skill. All right, so we're going to become present where we're sitting right now, wherever you are. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. And we're just going to take a moment to relax and enter into our bodies. Because we have to remember that even though our mind can go to the past and the future, our bodies can only ever be in the present moment. So as we sit here, I'm going to relax my facial muscles. We tend to scrunch up when we're tense. My eyes. Relax our jaw. We hold a lot of tension in our shoulders. Feel them drop. And feel your sit bones on the chair, whatever you're sitting on. Make contact. Your feet on the floor. And your hands in your lap, just to feel comfortable. We're going to breathe. And we're going to inhale through our nose. So inhale for a count of 4. And we're going to exhale through our mouths like we're blowing out a candle. And we're going to exhale a little bit longer than our inhale. So let's do that together. We're going to inhale for a count of 4. And exhale for a count of 6, 3, 4, 5, 6. And as you exhale, think about relaxing your body. Let's do that again. Let's inhale for a count of 4. Exhale for a count of 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if that's comfortable, you can even try to do 7. Or if it's too long, make it shorter. It's what works for you. But that exhale, that longer exhale, gets you out of a stress response and puts you in a more restful response. And with that, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And thank you for all of you for joining us tonight. And I wanted to also acknowledge Bin's willingness to take the material that we're providing him and he's translating it into Chinese. And we really do appreciate that. And Kathleen, you were spectacular as always, and we can't thank you enough for involving Lisa and Peggy in an exchange from their perspectives. And I think it was great. And of course, Elaine, thank you. Next time, 2 weeks from now, the focus will be on the voice of the self-advocates and a panel of self-advocates, and this will be great. So with that, have a wonderful couple of weeks, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. All right, thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye now. Okay, thank you, and everyone, good night now. It'd be great if everybody could sign off, so this way I can see if I can figure out what I'm going to do with this technology stuff. Kathleen, thank you so much.
Okay, take care. Bye, everybody.
All right, we'll talk. All right, bye now. Bye, Lisa. Bye, Peg. Bye, Corinne. All right, Elaine, I'll call you. Okay. Sam, if you could sign off, that would be great. And Andrea's iPad. Let's see here. Yes, remote. Andrea's